Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Joshua Colby. I am the instructor for Puna Medical Institute's Critical Thinking course. I wanted to make a video as we are now in week 3 of the course, learning about critical thinking and language. This week has our first real kind of challenging assignment, our first composition, as well as a more challenging discussion. So I wanted to make a video to go over the discussion and go over the assignment with you. So hopefully I can answer any questions you might have, and we can all do the best with this week's work. So let me share the screen and we'll go over some stuff about this. Okay, so here's the announcement for this week. Last week we learned about becoming a critical thinker. We had a nice discussion about the influence of authority on our critical thinking skills, looking at the Milgram study. This week is about critical thinking and language. We're thinking about how and why words have the meaning that they have, what power words hold. Is language arbitrary? Should we really be offended by words? Kind of what is happening with language on a more linguistic, philosophical level? So our discussion for the week is an interesting one, the language discussion. This is running, like all discussions, running from Wednesday through Sunday. So from Wednesday the 24th through Sunday the 28th, and your first posts need to be in by Friday the 26th. This is an interesting discussion. It's about a man who used a word in a public meeting that sounds horribly offensive. It sounds like a racial slur. But the word he actually used has no connection to the racial slur in any way. He used the word denotatively correct, meaning he used it correctly according to the dictionary. And yet people misunderstood the word because the word he chose to use is archaic and also sounds very, very, very close to something not nice. And so as a result, this controversy arises. And so it's basically asking you to consider this issue and consider this man's use of this word and the surrounding situation that escalated as a result of his word. Okay, so once again, that discussion runs from Wednesday through Sunday, with first posts due by Friday. And as always, make sure you submit a few replies to your classmates in order to receive full credit. We also have our first composition assignment, which is the nonverbal language assignment. So I want to jump over to the actual assignment prompt just a moment, and we'll go through it together, and that way, hopefully everybody will be on the same page. Okay, so let's go through the prompt. In 2004, Scott Peterson was convicted of killing his wife Lacey and their unborn son Connor. There was no conclusive proof he committed the crime, only circumstantial evidence. The jurors said a major factor in the decision was Peterson's nonverbal communication, his lack of emotional responsiveness, a quote, stony demeanor, even during wrenching testimony about his dead wife and son. The main question you have to answer with this is, should jurors be allowed to see a defendant during a trial, or should a law be put in place that sets the defendant out of the jury's view so as not to influence the decision? What this main question is kind of getting at is, with this Peterson case, essentially he was found guilty because he looked guilty, he seemed guilty, therefore he was guilty. Hopefully you can recognize that there are some problems with that, right? People are not, it's not like if you have a dog and you come home and there's like toilet paper shredded everywhere and your dog is sitting there cowering in the corner, looks guilty, is guilty. We can't really do that same thing with people, right? At the same time, there is information to be gained from nonverbal language, from body language, from clothing, from attitude, from tone, or from facial expressions, all of those kind of things, right? So should the defendant be allowed to be seen by the jury, or should the defendant be out of sight? Think about things like biases, racial prejudices, etc. Okay, so that's the main question you have to answer, but there are also a bunch of sub-questions, and it's really important that you address each sub-question carefully. So it says here, the question is an opportunity for you to use your critical thinking skills. Remember to use evidence and logic to support your answer. This is really important. Please make sure your answers are based on research, evidence. Do some digging around. Do not respond to this prompt with simply your personal opinion on the matter. Make sure it is an evidence-based argument. So those sub-questions I'm talking about. It says your paper should include thoughts on the language games played in the courtroom, including nonverbal language. Consider too what manipulative elements may be present in verbal and nonverbal language games in the courtroom. Consider the goals of the defense versus the prosecution and how each might use language accordingly. And it might be helpful to review different tools of rhetoric, like the use of hyperbole, euphemisms, diffemisms, sarcasm, emotive language, persuasive definitions, etc. Are these tools of rhetoric just as available in verbal language as nonverbal? With each of these little questions, like consider the language games, consider manipulative elements, consider the goals, each of those things needs a decent amount of consideration. They should sort of all be addressed. So kind of break this paragraph down into all of its individual questions and make sure that you address all of those as you are building your argument for this main question. So let's take a look at the rubric together. Points possible, 25. 15 are for content. It says opinion and evidence, but again, I don't mean opinion like you just read the prompt and your initial gut reaction is this. I mean your opinion based on research, based on critical thinking, based on thinking this through deeply, right? 5 points for grammar, sentence and paragraph structure, and then 5 points for writing level. I just want to briefly talk about a couple things with this in terms of grammar, sentence, paragraph structure, and writing level. Academic writing should be done, first of all, in APA format. If you are not familiar with APA format, there is a website called OWL Purdue APA. You can just Google it, OWL Purdue APA. It is OWL Online Writing Lab, Purdue, like Purdue University, APA. That is like the official, unofficial style guide for the APA format. Great resource, so make sure you check it out. I'll reference it repeatedly throughout the course. The other thing is academic writing should be done in third person point of view, which means no first person I, me, my statements. So instead of I think the defendant should be allowed to be seen by the jury, make it third person. The defendant should be allowed to be seen by the jury. Avoid especially using second person you, your statements, as they are very problematic and assume knowledge of your reader that you can't possibly have. An example of that would be something like, you know how when you're lying, your eyes shift all over. Maybe I don't know that, and I'm currently your reader, so eliminate second person. In terms of length, there's not really a minimum or a maximum here. Ideally, I would say that each of these little questions could benefit from its own paragraph. You might be able to group some of them together. It's not so much that you write 2 pages or whatever. It's more that you give each question, including the main question and each of these little sub ones, some significant thought and some significant consideration in your response. Okay, so that is the prompt, as well as the rubric. That assignment is due Sunday the 28th. You can turn it in for a preview by today, Wednesday the 24th. You can turn it in by the end of the day today. And within 48 hours, I will look at it, offer you some feedback, throw some comments in it. I will return it to you as a Word document that is filled with comments. You open up the Word document and you'll see my advice and feedback on how to improve it. And then you can still submit it again on Sunday the 28th. So again, it's officially due Sunday the 28th, but you can turn it in early today for a preview, and I'll give you some feedback on it and get it back to you in about 48 hours, and then you can make the improvements to your paper. I think that's it. That should be it anyway. If you have questions, if you need help with anything, I'm always available via email. You can text me, you can call me, I'll get back to you when I am able. Email is probably the quickest, but it's up to you. If you really need help, let me know. Otherwise, I hope you guys have a good week, and I will see you next time.